Good morning.
Feels like my chair has dropped, but that's all right. I feel kind of low today, so. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to House Judiciary. Lots of experienced people in the room, or a few experienced people in the room. No need to go into all the rigmarole. Please call the roll.
Representative Brady,
Here.
Representative Breton,
Here.
Representative Chesnick, Representative Filer,
Here.
Representative Kelly,
Excused,
Representative Lean,
excused.
Representative Singh.
Here.
Representative Webb,
Here.
Chairman Washut.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Senate File 87 is first up this morning. Senator Kolb. Good morning.
There we go. Good morning, House Judiciary. Happy to be here. Hopefully these bills will be as they are in front of you, short and sweet. I'll talk Senate File 87. Introduce myself, Senator Kolb. It goes felony interference with police officer amendments. And what this bill simply is addressing is the issue of our law enforcement people, the breadth, PD, HP, peace officers are getting assaulted. And through the assault process, they are getting injured, stabbed in a particular case. And the, I guess, defense is, well, I didn't mean it. Well, I thought that was woefully inadequate, and of a reason why is you didn't mean it. Well, in this case, they were fighting with a police officer and they were literally stabbed. So that's the reason for this legislation to be brought forward in front of you today. And it basically says if you hurt a law enforcement officer in the course of their lawful duty, it can be charged as a felony. And that's what it changes. It makes it a little, I guess, more clear that hurting a police officer, and when they, woke up in the morning and went to work, that they come back home in the same way they started without getting injured. And I thought that was an appropriate thing to do. I'd worked with Senator Nethercott on this. That kind of had the idea together that, well, we had to do something to protect our law enforcement folks, considering the climate of the country right now seems to be a little out of control with what people think they can do to police officers, law enforcement. And I didn't think, causing physical injury was appropriate. So that's why this bill's in front of you. It's pretty short. It references another statute and we couldn't put it in because the LSO didn't want to draft it that way. So that's the reason why you have to look it up if you want to see the other half of what it's affecting. Mr. Chairman, members of the House Judiciary, I'll stand for questions, and thank you for letting me be here today.
Senator, the bill draft, the Senate file references subsection A. Whoever, while violating subsection A, can you illuminate what subsection A says for the committee?
Well, if I was an attorney, I could probably just take it off the cuff, but I didn't bring subsection A with me. It's in the statute books. It talks about misdemeanors, as I recall, and it.
Representative Chesnick, you want to help them out?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have the book with me. Subsection A says a person commits a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment for not more than 1 year, a fine of not more than $1,000 or both. So basically a misdemeanor if he knowingly obstructs, impedes, or interferes with or resists arrest by a peace officer while engaged in the lawful performance of his official duties. Right. So the way
Please continue.
the way I read this, subsection A, both subsection A and subsection B are specific intent crimes. Subsection A, you have to have the intent to engage in conduct, right? You have to be engaged in obstruction, impeding officers, et cetera. So there's you're doing intentional conduct. under B, which you're now amending, you're pulling that into B, and B, the specifics intent is the intent to cause harm, not engage in conduct. That's the difference. So now under B, you have to both have the specific intent to cause harm, but also to intend to engage in the conduct. Or I guess those are all alternatives. It's an or, right? So now if you engage in the conduct and it results in injury, that now violates B because you're pulling that into, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator.
Representative Chesnick, yes, it does. It broadens it up, but once again, proven in a court of law. This gives our prosecuting attorneys, I think, another tool to affect a better outcome for law enforcement when it comes to bodily injury. But that would be the summation of it.
Questions for Senator Cole? Representative Filer?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. And Senator Cole, there's no doubt. I want to make sure every one of our police officers go home safe. But when I read the statute too here just a little bit ago, and we're under the course of violating subsection A, so what we're pretty much doing is making B A. So we're pretty much making it almost a felony throughout the whole statute. Also, and I feel like it's a little, could this be a little broad? I mean, if it's I know there's folks here in our area that, videotape, when there's something going on or something, and say an officer is in their duties trying to secure an area or something like that, but there's somebody videotaping them, they trip, fall. Is that going to cause them bodily injury? Is it opening it up for just way more broad ways of getting into a felony?
Mr.
Senator
Chairman, Representative Filer, I don't believe so. I think this is all sorted out in the court of law. Number one, this merely gives the prosecutors a clearer way of talking to a jury. And I'm not an attorney, but when you're trying to tell them the situation and convince them that this is a felonious act because there was bodily injury, this is involving physical harm caused to that officer in the course of his duty. I said if you did a tripping move and knocked a police officer, yeah, you probably should pay the consequences. But if it's not serious bodily injury, then that may be the other part to this.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a follow-up?
Follow-up?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Senator Cole. So if they do bodily injury, wouldn't they already fall under B? Wouldn't they be allowed to prosecute under B?
Mr. Chairman, oh yeah, they could and they failed because you have to prove the state of mind, and they couldn't do it. So to answer that question more precisely, there was an issue. Obviously, you have to prove the intent. Well, this merely says you can't just say, "I didn't mean to stab you," which is literally the situation we're talking about. It just happened to be, I guess, maybe you walked into my knife. So that Representative, Mr. Chairman, Representative Fowler, that was the intent of this. And yeah, it's nuanced. You are correct. And it is difficult to read because it took me a lot of times to read how it interacted with the other statute. But clearly it seems to be a good piece of proposed legislation. And to answer the question, I try to do my best, Mr. Chairman. Once again, I'm not blessed with having a law degree. I am blessed with the ability to read. And so when I read it, I'm trying to improve the situation for our law enforcement officers.
Senator, it's clear in the language that there has to be causation, right? It's not just a trip and fall while somebody was protesting. The person who's interfering or obstructing has to cause the bodily injury. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Cole, for your explanation of the bill. It's been a long week. I'm looking at this and it's blue. And so were there any amendments that were made? And can you tell us about those?
Senator Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am remiss, like you had said, I think maybe, it was page 2. Yeah. So I did have half a memory, to be exact. It was page 2, line 1. Well, that police officer is, that was the original language, and it was cleaned up and changed, and just with wow, that was the change in the wording. So I have it here if you'd like to look at it, but it was just a functionality change of the language, just to make it read better and more correctly. That's what it was changed. It was a little bit wordy, so it cleaned it up and streamlined it. But I have it here if you'd like to see it.
Representative Bratton.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is about bodily injury and how bodily injury is defined. Yeah, can you tell me about that? Like and that might be a question for the representative holding the green book, but how is bodily injury defined? I mean, I think stabbing would definitely be bodily injury, but what if somebody's just resisting arrest and, bruising and, fighting back? Thank you.
Mr.
Senator Cole.
Chairman, Representative Bratton, obviously fighting back and hitting somebody is a level of bodily injury, obviously. I mean, there is no such thing as, what you didn't mean to give him a black eye, I suppose. Let's just talk about that as an example. So I think maybe we might be talking about somebody grabbing somebody and causing bruising, those kinds of things. I think I would defer to the Chairman Washit or one of the more learned folks up there about the definition of bodily injury in the blue books, or the green books, excuse me, looking at blue paper. So I think it's clearly a higher level of injury. We're not worried. I mean, this is about the issue about, in a court of law, when you have to prove what's the state of mind about what you were thinking when you were doing some action. This merely says, irrelevant of what you're thinking, you cannot hurt a police officer by, and I just gave you and there's a real case of a stabbing. I mean, you can't actually cause that level of, and this is all going to be sorted out in a court of law. This merely gives more clear guidance that the bar you have to reach is in my mind a little bit more reasonable when it comes to actually stabbing somebody. I find it's shocking that our county attorneys or DAs, whomever it might be in this case, I think it's a DA maybe, now county attorney, that they couldn't get this over the hurdle after a stabbing in a court of law. So that's the intent of this. I don't have the definition in front of me. I apologize for that. Obviously, I'm first time here. I should have expected this, and I would have come down here with some backup, as it may be, but I did not. I fared by myself. And
Representative Shestak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a series of questions, but to address the first one on the definition of bodily injury. Bodily injury is a defined term in the Crimes Code under Section 6-1-104. A1, bodily injury means three things: a cut, abrasion, burn, or temporary disfigurement. So a scrape would count as bodily injury. Physical pain or impairment of the function of a bodily member. So you skin your knee, that's a bodily injury. The term serious bodily injury is defined in Romanet 10 of that same section to create a substantial risk of death, severe protracted physical pain, severe disfigurement, or basically what you would think of as a serious injury. So Senator Kolb, you did say that this was intended to cover serious bodily injury, but that's not in the statute. The words in the statute is bodily injury, which is defined as a very minor, temporary, even ouch, I hurt my wrist for 5 minutes and I'm better. That's a bodily injury. So I have a serious problem with that word, with the bodily injury piece. My question to you is, the way this is worded, the way I read this, let me put to you a hypothetical. There's a protest in which a group of people are trying to document or protest an immigration enforcement action. We see a lot of that going around the country all over the place. And in the process of protesting, exercising their First Amendment rights, they try and protect the individual who is being pursued by the immigration officials. In the process of protecting that, of trying to protect that individual, that could be considered a violation of, I've lost my place here. It would be a violation of A, because they're trying to impede the officer from they're trying to protect somebody from being arrested, which could be viewed as a violation of Part A. When you import then Part A into B, so the language you're adding says that that violation, the attempt to protect an individual in an ICE enforcement situation, that they are violating A, and therefore they're now considered part of B. They have the intent to engage in that conduct, so they are now committing a felony under B if they cause bodily injury. So the officers who respond run up to the protesters. One of them trips and falls and skins his knee. He wouldn't have had to run there, so there's causation. It's but for causation. But for the protest, they wouldn't have had to run and engage in the behavior. They have a scrape on the knee, and now the protesters have a 10-year felony. Am I not reading that correctly?
Senator.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Chesnick, no, I don't believe you are. I think when you started talking about impeding somebody and not clarifying about, frankly, what happened during the impediment, frankly, I think Representative Chesnick, you typified why I brought this bill here. With that argument that I just heard, that is exactly the argument. If you think we can, my opinion for bringing this is that we've got people out there who are injecting themselves and hurting police officers. And I don't know where they get the right to stand up and say, I'm going to be like a middle police officer. I'm going to get in between these two people. You have a right to peacefully protest. I think everybody has that right, but you don't have the right to hurt police officers. You don't have the right to get in between them. And that's why this bill's here in front of you. I think you've heard the other side of the argument put in quite well by Representative Chesnick. And that's really about, I don't have to say much more. That's why this is in front of you. I think it's a question about what you believe is right. If you believe people have the right to interfere with law enforcement and cause injury for whatever their excuse, peaceful protest, not peaceful, whatever it is, we have chaos. Frankly, it's chaos. And I think this bill goes to say that for in the state of Wyoming, do we agree with chaos? Do we agree that you should be able to hurt an law enforcement person in a reasonable course of action? That's the question that I see it as.
So Senator, it's already a crime for this person to have intervened and interfered or obstructed
Injury.
the officer, right?
Yes.
The question is, if while they're obstructing the officer, they also cause injury to that officer, that would make it a felony crime under this bill. That's correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's the summation of what this bill does.
Further questions? Okay. Representative Brady.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Senator Kolb, for coming, and I'm with you to protect peace officers as best as we can. And I think you mentioned it earlier, but would you mind please saying again, what was the impetus of you to bring this forward? Was it personal, or do you have a friend? I don't remember catching that. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Brady, no, I don't have a friend. I got actually a son of mine's a PD in Texas now. Used to be a PD officer in All Clarity in Rock Springs Canine. So no, I don't have any personal. I mean, I'm more of a person that believes in right and wrong, and in law and order and keeping the peace. And when I did hear about a case that involved that stabbing, and I thought, with the tenor of our country right now, I thought in Wyoming was one place that we shouldn't put up with that, frankly. We should protect law enforcement. And I don't want to give anybody superpowers here. I don't want to protect people who shouldn't be protected. But I think in the normal course of action, you should expect not to be hurt. And people, you don't have the right to be another level of anti-law enforcement and hurting our law enforcement people. So frankly, no, I don't really have a dog in that fight, in that world. No, I don't, that's not the reason why I brought it. I brought it for a more holistic reason, just for keeping the peace, frankly. Maybe I didn't explain that very well, but that was my intent.
Follow up?
Yes, please, thanks. Yes, and thank you, Chairman. And I think kind of got a sense of what you're trying to say, these groups or whatever. And what came to my mind is paid agitators that tend to be a little bit aggressive. Just a
Senator.
comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Brady. Yeah, I think it's just the whole degradation of our society. Our fabric is unwinding. And this is one way to say, well, do we want this? And that's the bill in front of this committee today. You know, this is your bill right now. You do with it as you think is proper. I think it's valuable. I think it does solve a problem without being overbroad. I know when you first read it, it's a little bit conflated when it relates to another section. But it does solve a problem pretty cleanly, that if you cause bodily injury to a law enforcement officer, that there's going to be a consequence. And you can't just say, well, I didn't mean it. So thank you.
Thank you. Further question, Representative Chestic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my question now is on page 2 of the bill, line 1. Peace officer, while engaged in the lawful performance of his official duties. It seems to me the word lawful there is doing a lot of work. What is lawful and what is not lawful? Would you agree that if a peace officer is engaged in excessive force, we've seen a lot of that happening in some of these detention raids, especially in Minnesota recently. If there's excessive force being conducted by the peace officer, and somebody comes to the aid of the victim of the excessive force, should that person be protected from prosecution as a felon?
Senator, that's existing statute, right? The lawful.
Correct. Yes, that's correct, Chairman.
Go ahead
but-
and answer the question if you wish.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Washington, Representative Jesnick. I think if you're excessive force, it's not lawful. I think that's a simple answer to that. Once again, that's how I think I want to answer that, but I'll stand for further, I guess, questions, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions? Seeing none. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to testify on Senate File 87? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Committee, what's your pleasure? Moved by Singh, second by Filer. Amendments to the bill. Representative Chestic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would, on page 1, line 15, I want to add one word. After section causes, comma, add the word serious. Serious bodily injury.
Second.
Motion by Chestic, second by Filer to add the word serious. I believe if you cause serious bodily injury, you're already committing a felony. Okay? And so if you add serious bodily injury there, I don't know we're gaining much, but we can debate the amendment. Any further question, Representative Webb?
Serious bodily injury is that there's a real substantial risk of death or permanent disfigurement. And if there's one thing that I am completely convinced of, and that is that a prosecutor is going to drop this down to the misdemeanor section. So I don't know that adding serious bodily injury in there is necessary. I think that yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Representative Filer?
Mr. Chairman, I think because if you look at starting on line 14, it says cause or who in the course of violating subsection A of this section. So what we're doing, and I'm not an attorney by any stretch, but I think the reason why we would have to have serious in there because we are taking what's already in A, which is a misdemeanor, and putting it in with B, which pretty much means anything you do with A, they can prosecute within B without serious in there. Because if we just do regular bodily injury, as we noticed on the 6-1-104, the definition of bodily injury, could it be up to a bruise? And I think about the hypotheticals, Mr. Chairman. There's many people in our community, and I hold these folks really close to my heart, as with developmental disabilities, things like that, that could be getting arrested or could be impeding or resisting arrest, not even knowing what they're actually doing. And now we're going to charge them with a felony. And I think that's why we have to put serious in there, because we're adding A to B is what we're doing.
I guess my concern there is if you put serious on line 15, you degrade B. If you not only add some protection, I suppose, to minimize who might be vulnerable under a violation of A, but you degrade B, because under present law, a person who intentionally and knowingly causes or attempts to cause bodily injury. Okay, that's existing law.
Yep.
Now, if you put in serious bodily injury in there, then if you intentionally try to cause harm, okay, unless it's serious bodily harm, you're not going to meet the threshold of B. So I think putting serious there really degrades the statute. Representative Chester.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And you're right, it does. It changes the existing law for people who intentionally and knowingly cause or attempt to cause bodily injury. The problem is by importing the language or who in the course of violating subsection A, that's why we need to have serious, because I think it's so existing law, you're correct. Existing law says the person who intentionally attempts to cause bodily injury, fine. The intent there is to cause injury. That's the specific intent of that. But the language that is being inserted has a different intent. The intent there is to engage in conduct, whether it causes injury or not. And a lot of the conduct is not intended to cause injury. It's intended to protest. It's intended to do something else. But so now somebody who does not intend to cause any injury can be convicted of a felony. So the intent element is the problem. The change of intent in B, in the language that's being added, imports a different kind of intent, and I think it's really dangerous to suggest that somebody who intends to protest can be prosecuted for a felony if somebody happens to get hurt, whether they intended to hurt them or not. I'm just trying to put some guardrails on, and I'm okay with putting guardrails on the rest of B as well. But as long as we're adding this language in red on 14 and 15, we need to limit this to serious bodily injury, or else we're going to have a huge chilling effect on people trying to protest.
Be clear, the difference between protesting and interfering and obstructing and resisting arrest and interfering. Protesting doesn't put you into that position. When you start obstructing and interfering, those are already crimes. Those are already actions that are criminal in nature. And what this bill does is take that criminal conduct and say, if while you're committing that crime, you injure a peace officer, now it kicks up to a felony. Representative Filer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think that the arguments that are being presented here do nothing but underscore my comment about prosecutorial discretion. And I just don't think we need the word no prosecutor is going to charge somebody for a bruise or a scrape or whatever, going to charge them with a felony. They would be laughed out of the court.
Representative Chester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I admire your respect for prosecutors. Please excuse me if I don't share that. We have seen some pretty frivolous prosecutions being at the federal level recently. And I don't want to give, I think most prosecutors in Wyoming are good prosecutors and would probably agree with your sentiments and probably would not prosecute this, but I don't trust everybody. I can't guarantee that some elected prosecutor might not want to make some kind of a statement at some point in the future and bring a charge. We don't write these statutes hoping that somebody else is going to fix them for us. We need to get it right when we enact the statute.
Okay, let's take a vote on the motion. The motion is to add the word serious after the word causes, correct?
Yes.
Everybody clear? Jerry, you got that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no?
No.
No. Motion carries, I think.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairman.
question.
We question on the bill? Call the roll.
This is a roll call vote on Senate File 87 as amended. Representative Brady,
Aye.
Representative Bratton,
Aye.
Representative Chesnick,
No.
Representative Filer,
Aye.
Representative Kelly,
Excused.
Representative Lean,
Excused.
Representative Singh.
Aye.
Representative Webb,
Aye.
Chairman Washut.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 no, 2 excused.
Committee, the only reason I voted aye on that is so that maybe in conference committee, we can fix this if we don't fix it on the floor. I think putting serious bodily injury in there defeats the whole purpose of the bill. Representative Filer.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment. I think I would have been a little more put at ease with your comments about putting in serious, but if I would have had like a prosecutor in the room to help with me with this, or anyone from the courts or the Police Officers Association or somebody to kind of help along with that. But I think you're right, Mr. Chairman. I think this is maybe a good way to.
All right, let's take up Senate File 111. Senate File 111. Senator Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the House Judiciary. 111 is exactly what it says in the title, Select Committee on Gaming. It's forming that committee. I will just broadly say the cost versus the industry. Roughly speaking, well, this is exactly $37,000 for the appropriation, regulating I'll just use rough term, $2 billion industry. I think probably we've all heard a lot about gaming this session, and, local control came up, and I would hope that at this point, people could understand it more clearly that the issue is very broad. We only tackled a very few select areas, and the reason is time. We can't possibly make a lift in doing 100 things at once. So there was 5 things, I think, in total focused on during the course of the interim that made it through that we're discussing now at some different points during the process. This will give gaming a permanent home. I think what's clear is if you look at the history of gaming and just how we've tried to make amendments, change what we currently do, it has a track record of abysmal failure. I mean, there's many, many bills that have died that haven't gone anywhere, not for a lack of trying, but for I think the inability for us to have a permanent home to deal with this topic. It's not going to go away. I mean, we've got gaming in our state, and it has many different formats, procedures. I mean, there's different types of game, skill-based games, HHR game. I mean, there's a multitude of games that we're trying to deal with that have kind of developed, and some of them have exploded. HHR has exploded into a very, very large industry. And frankly, we're using statutes that we had in the beginning in a lot of cases that are just not there. They're not there for the state of Wyoming. I don't feel like we're getting a correct an apportionment of the revenues. There's a lot of things that have to be gone through, and that's going to take some time. I hear there's going to be an amendment that talks about sunsetting this committee, or select committee. I would resist that. I'd say this for that purpose is that in my wildest imagination, I can't believe all these things would get done in that time frame. And this is such a large industry with so many tentacles that go everywhere. I mean, I could bore you with the few things that I've learned during the course of this interim, getting more involved with it, that I assure you, from after seeing all these things, and we have one of your representatives was on the committee during the interim task force, and it's large. So I guess what I'm asking for is a permanent home for gaming so we can talk about it into the future. And I will be the first to say, if somehow there's a miracle from the Lord and we solve all these problems, I'll be the first one to want this disbanded. I don't believe in having frankly, we probably have too many committees that do a lot of things I scratch my head over, but this is one that is would regulate a very, very large segment of an economic corner in the state of Wyoming when it comes to gaming. It's so broad, it's difficult to talk about it, but I think it's a clear need. It would be it's my opinion why I brought this and in front of you today. And I would ask for your support for this purpose, that we continue the conversation, working with industry, the state and local officials, legislative branches between the House and Senate. And we had good products this interim that we had seen earlier, which we've made a lot of progress. And I think it deserves a place, because I'll say this, during Management Council, so Management Council created this task force over the interim. When I had to come back and explain what we did to Management Council, well, I was there for hours, literally hours, repeating what had happened during the summer, because they didn't know, because they were busy doing what they were doing. It just kind of points towards the need for a permanent home, because we need to have a select committee in this case that would be able to bring legislation forward and sponsor it. It would make it a little simpler, and it would give it a place where we can actually focus more concisely with some assurity that we're going to work through these items and sort them out in an order that is most beneficial to the state in a timely way. It's so broad, it's blown up beyond, I think, most people's possible imagination. So,
Senator, so you mentioned the sunset.
Oh, it's not on this.
Is it, would it be your preference that this committee look at amending that sunset out and then having to take a different bill back to conference with the Senate? Or should we just pass the bill as is and let the future legislature deal with that sunset provision when it comes up?
Let me reiterate. I'm just fine with the way the bill is in front of you. I have no issues with that. I'm talking about merely the future, Mr. Chairman. Maybe I got ahead of myself.
Yeah. Committee, any questions, Representative Filer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I noticed that the committee would be, 3 members from the Senate, 3 members from the House. And it's here to develop knowledge and expertise regarding gaming activities. I'm just kind of wondering, well, I guess if this is a committee, but it doesn't seem like there's anybody from the industry that's going to be on this at all or anything like that. But I guess they wouldn't be if it's just a committee.
This is a legislative committee, right, Senator Cole?
Yes.
It's a plan rather than a task force.
Correct. So to Representative Filer's really direct question is, we are involved with industry. You know, frankly, we don't want industry writing we don't want industry writing the statutes because of course it benefits industry. So no, we are directly involved. We bring in all the partners and that will continue to happen.
Further questions, Representative Brady?
Thank you, Chairman. Senator Kolb, I do have a question on the funding. Could the funding not come from the gaming revenue versus the general fund?
Senator?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Brady, this is a legislative body. So you know, that's why the funding comes out of there. And justification for the funding, even though I'm probably as tight as they come with spending money, when you're talking about, I didn't do the percentage. I entertained myself to think about it. I ran out of time, but for 37,000 versus 2 billion, that's what we're talking about. This is a massive industry. And so I think it's a very, very tiny amount of money we're talking about. That if you look at the rest of these committees that we have are set up in the same way, the select committees, this probably by far, if you added up all those other select committees, I don't think they come close to what this committee would do for the same money. So I think bang for the buck, if that's what we want to talk about, like, is it justified money-wise? Absolutely. And
Okay, further question, Representative Brady?
Follow up, please. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I guess my point was just that since it's dealing with gaming, why not it come out of there? So I understand what you're saying. And then do you think instituting or bringing in another committee would seem to normalize or institutionalize gaming growth in the eyes of public?
Senator?
Chairman, Representative Brady, no, I think of it the opposite way. I mean, if I was going to look at this, you know, what's it going to do? I think what it does is level the playing field for the state's position legislatively, that we have an opportunity to go through the different issues that are, I mean, I could go through many of them, it'd bore you, but there's an example of why it would be beneficial. Right now, there's an issue called breakage, which is the rounding errors on HHR, historical horse racing. And breakage accounts for about $600,000. That is not captured by anybody except profit by the people running HHR machines. I don't think that's fair. I think we should have a conversation about what we're going to do about breakage, which is a rounding error on payoffs of pots for the different types of gaming choices you have. I'm probably not saying that right with HHR, but that's just one thing. So for the broader question is, you know, is it going to make it worse instead of better, right? That's kind of what I heard. I think it's going to make it much better because frankly, they wait us out. You want to know the truth? These folks are here a lot longer than we are. And if we don't get ahead of this, like we haven't gotten ahead of it because it's exploded, we are just going to be more behind. And this is an attempt to get us up to speed with people that can focus in on it with a level of knowledge to talk to both bodies, House and Senate, to come up with legislation that we all agree is beneficial to our constituents.
So, Senator, I see this as akin to select water, right? Water law, water policy, vital to the state of Wyoming, but not an area that most of us have great expertise in. And so the body tends to rely on those members of the Select Water Committee to bring forth legislation and discussion on the floor to help the rest of the body. Do you see it that same way?
Chairman Washington, I do. That's a good analogy. It's a fight that we have to always keep up with water, and this is a fight. Maybe I shouldn't use those words, but this is an issue that we have to keep on top of with gaming because, frankly, when you talk about this kind of money, high-powered lobbyists, attorneys are all involved with this because of the level of money. Water's our lifeblood when it comes to our future in the state of Wyoming, and gaming is something that we have to be able to wrap our arms around and start to make choices that we all agree are the right choices because the product changed. I mean, we could go into a lot of things, Mr. Chairman, but I think it's not going to go away in a little bit. In other words, this issue is going to kind of be going on for quite a while. We got, five bills out during the interim. And those are all well thought out bills. I can assure you there's many more topics that was so difficult to keep on track because of the purses with HHR. You know, there's so many things that, because of the money, I think it rises up to an important thing to have a conversations for legislation. And like you alluded to, as we do with water, it's one of those things that's just not going to go away. Unless we get rid of gambling in the state of Wyoming, or gaming, I should use the right term, gaming in the state. When we get rid of it, then I guess we don't need this, but it appears it's here to stay. And it appears that we have a responsibility, in my opinion, to manage it. And I think this is a great way of doing that, Mr. Chairman.
Questions, Senator? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify on Senate File 111? Good morning. Welcome to Senate or House Judiciary.
Good morning, Chairman Washit, members of House Judiciary. My name is Affie Ellis. I'm an attorney with the law firm Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck. I'm here today representing Cowboy Racing. Cowboy Racing is the newest entrant into the market. We have built a full-size racetrack 10 miles east of Cheyenne. We're very excited about our project and being able to bring live horse racing to Cheyenne and all the citizens of Laramie County. I wanted to briefly touch on the need for this bill. I've been thinking about this issue, and if you'll indulge me, as you know, I served in the Senate when we created the Wyoming Gaming Commission. It was transforming the Wyoming Parimutuel Commission into the Gaming Commission. And so I've seen this issue get bounced around to all different kinds of committees. It was in TRW, it was in Revenue, then it was in JAC. It hasn't had a home. And so I do think it's appropriate to have that level of expertise grown in the state of Wyoming and in the legislative bodies as well. So I support the creation of the committee, and so does Cowboy Racing. Looking at the mission and its charge, though, I think that there's some really critical things that we think are missing. So I've provided you with a handout with a couple of suggestions, and it's the purpose of creating the select committee. We've wanted to make sure that the industry, the committee members develop a knowledge and expertise on best industry practices to ensure that gaming activities are conducted honestly, competitively, and free of criminal and corruptive elements, and in a manner that is fair and equitable to affected parties. Mr. Chairman, I offer this language. A lot of it's based on language that you find in Nevada's existing statute. As you know, the state of Nevada has a very storied history with gaming and how that came into its state. And has a lot of really important concepts of how you keep this industry fair for all parties. The second half of that language I actually borrowed from existing statute. The second suggestion we'd offer for the purpose of the select committee would be to develop knowledge and expertise regarding the history and connection between live horse racing and authorized gaming activities that support live horse racing and the agricultural industry. For those of you who weren't in the legislature at the time, and neither was I, in 2013, that's when the Wyoming legislature enacted the law that said, we're not going to just allow for parimutuel racing, but historic parimutuel racing. And that's really the definition that's used for these HHR machines. So if you looked at that bill back from 2013, we really just kind of smushed some language in there. We didn't think about what regulatory processes need to go into supporting that kind of activity. Other states have talked about, well, when you get a license, what are some automatic things that you have on your criminal background check that's a no-go for the state of Wyoming? You've been charged with and convicted of certain crimes involving theft, bodily harm. I heard you say that, serious bodily harm. So if you have those things on your record, you don't even get a license in Wyoming. None of those issues were addressed when HHR was authorized in 2013. Going forward in the future, when the legislature did start looking at authorizing skill-based amusement machines and online sports wagering, I remember working on those bills and thinking, this is how it's done in other states. These are good practices. We should do that too for these industries. So you'll see a disconnect in some of the activities that were authorized in 2020, online sports wagering and skill-based amusement machines that have some protections in there, but they're really not existent for HHR. So that's why we think it's important to add and understand for committee members that connection of why we have HHR machines, the connection of horse racing, and then to not just look at what we do in Wyoming. We do a lot of comparison with liquor laws, and sometimes those are adequate and sometimes they're not. But other states have really great thoughts and laws, and so we think that the scope of what the committee members should be learning should be a little bit broader. So I appreciate your consideration of including those two paragraphs in this bill. The second issue, and I did mention this to Senator Kolb as we were walking in the room, is the concept of a sunset. I have been hoping that the legislature would just grab on and look at best practices in other states for a long, long time. And when the Management Council created the Select Committee on Gaming last year, I thought we were going to tackle some of those issues, but we really focused on one singular issue this year. Or in my opinion, we focused a lot of time on local control. I was very happy to see that some other bills grew out of that committee, dealing with anti-money laundering and some other issues. Those are very important. But I think the purpose of having a sunset in my mind is twofold. And some of this is just my experience of having served in your seats. If you look at the list of select committees right now, there was a time in the legislature where we'd always say, here we go, we're creating another select committee, another task force. And this list used to be really long. And over the course of years, we really scaled that back. We said, okay, let's look at task forces that maybe don't need to be in existence anymore. How do we make permanent things that should be? I'll give you an example. The Select Committee on Tribal Relations, for a long time, that entity didn't have any ability to author legislation. So anytime we'd work on a bill, we'd have to go to a standing committee and time it all out throughout the interim to make sure we had time to go present our bill to the appropriate standing committee. So in tribal relations, it took us years to even earn the authority to introduce legislation on our own. And our big telling point in making the case to Management Council and other leaders in the bodies was, look at our body of work. These are all the bills we've brought. We've brought good work, check, hold us accountable. And through that work, that's when the legislature said, okay, we'll let you have the ability to introduce legislation. So I think the concept of having a sunset is that accountability piece. Give this committee a chance to get up and running. Let them not just maybe, have 1 year where they start putting Band-Aids and trying to plug all the holes, but maybe look at all of our gaming statutes in a really comprehensive way so that maybe we take them out of Title 11, which is the agricultural title. Maybe they go into a separate area and then see where there's some matching and alignment. But I think that takes more than one interim. I think that takes multiple years. But I think it would be helpful to give this committee a little bit more guidance. To Senator Kolb's point, there are a lot of very influential, this is a lot of money involved. You have a lot of lobbyists. And you see, in our opinion, last year's House Bill 85 was the local control simulcasting bill. We were concerned that there were so many, we talked about the Christmas tree and ornaments being hung on that. There was a lot hung on it. Rather than just kind of throwing things together in a quick manner, so we have to hurry up and give you something, I do think it'd be helpful for this committee to take a few years, understand the industry, and then maybe looking at a real big comprehensive rewrite. So if the committee were to go down that route, come up with a bill, involve stakeholders, and have all the negotiating that we saw we were able to achieve with the simulcasting bill you passed yesterday, then you can revisit the sunset date and maybe say, yeah, this committee did good work. Let's make them permanent and let's go from there. So that was the intention in bringing it. My fear in not having a sunset date is this list. This is your list of select committees and task forces. Again, we have worked very hard over the last 10 years. It was really long. We've tried to shorten it up. I think you do need to be mindful about what you add to this list. Without a sunset, here's what happens. I've talked to, back when we had all of these committees, I said, is there a way we can restructure all of our committees? Because something we hear as legislators all the time is you guys are on the road constantly. And at the Senate side, it's worse because there are only half the number of senators compared to House members. So they literally cover, at my height, I was at 7 committees and they're everywhere. It's demanding. So years ago, I thought, what if we did a big rewrite? Maybe take federal natural resources, put that with minerals, maybe take the labor health, take the labor piece out of labor committee, put it with economic development, restructure things like that, look at workforce issues. And there's just a real reluctance among legislators to do that because it inevitably results in people losing chairmanships and things that they care very passionately about. And so I was met with strong resistance. Do not touch committee structures. We do not get rid of committees. And so I think if you have a sunset in here, it creates an incentive again for your committee members and leadership to say, we better do good work, show our homework, and then we earn the authorization to continue to exist. Without it, I think you'll see what you see always is, well, we can't restructure these committees. We're entitled to exist in perpetuity. So that's the reason in bringing it. I would hope that after, I put 4 years in there, but certainly if you looked at 6 or some other time frame, but that was my thinking in that, Mr. Chairman, was to try and prompt this committee to produce some really thoughtful, good work and have a chance to show you their homework and say, hey, did we do it? Do we earn our status as a more permanent select committee? So I'm happy to answer any questions about any of those proposed amendments, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Senator Cole?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's no money past June 30th to 28. So I think that I would assume that'd be reappropriated. So I think in essence, it's built into it. I would also really wonder, I haven't seen the amendment. No one's given me the amendment. This happens to be my bill. So I haven't even seen it. I don't really know what it does or says. So once again, I have other questions. In fact, there's a sale to Bally's currently going on right now with Cowboy Racing. I know that is because of the Gaming Commission. So I'm unsure about that relationship, but that all being said, I think some good points were made. It doesn't take away from there is definitely an issue about our committees. I'll be the first one to say, I really scratch my head sometimes, but instead of throwing up a bunch of chaff in the air, I think this just focuses on one thing. And I would certainly always be amenable to removing some of the other committees our select committees we have, but this isn't doing that. And to the comment that we weren't broad enough, I find that frankly ridiculous. I don't know if anyone's ever, I think Representative Webb certainly was there with us. The problem was it's so broad, it's hard to focus. So there was local authority, gaming authority for approval and disapproval. That was the topic because that's what came from last year. So we tried to be as broad as possible and be fair about what was picked on a hierarchy of ease and need. And so that was the calculus involved. And it was me who was trying to make sure we had something that we could discuss. And it was local control, to be clear. But to the point made, it's so broad, I think it really points to the issue about having an ongoing committee. And the funding does have a sunset date as I read it, if I'm reading it correctly. And I think that'll pretty well stop anybody from meeting without money. So I guess that's my explanation, Mr. Chairman. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on Senate File 111? Anyone else in the room wishing to testify on Senate File 111? Mr. Riemann, welcome to House Judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Jeremiah Riemann here on behalf of the County Commissioners Association. Do appreciate you taking this up and do support this particular bill, and certainly appreciate the support for the legislation that has been moving this year. There are a couple of other issues that we've brought forward in the past around this. One of those is the problem gaming funding that currently exists in the state. And it's in different pots and different agencies, including some that goes to my members. And we would like to continue working on that. So I appreciate that that is considered in this. I think it's also really good to have a committee of jurisdiction. I will tell you that I've been working on these issues for 5 or 6 years. I've been to the travel committee. I've been to the minerals committee. I've been to the appropriations committee. I've been to the transportation committee. I've been to judiciary. We just need a place where you're going to have a group of legislators that really do focus on these issues and allow us to address some of them as we move forward. So with that, Mr. Chairman, again, would support this legislation and appreciate your consideration.
Questions for Mr. Riemann? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else in the room who hasn't previously testified? Wanting to testify? Anybody on Zoom? Mr. Larramendi? Good morning.
morning.
Introduce yourself to the committee and tell us what you want us to know about Senate File 111.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Nick Larramendi, Executive Director, Wyoming Gaming Commission. My apologies for not being there in person. I have a scheduling conflict this morning with OAH. Just a little bit of brief background. Even in my tenure with the commission since 2019, and I know this has been mentioned before, we've gone from TRW to revenue to back to TRW to joint appropriations. And the agency has found it very difficult, with working with those committees and all of the things that they're trying to deal with, to really be able to get them the information and the education that they need. Gaming is ever evolving. It's highly complex. As Senator Kolb said, over $2 billion. In fact, I just pulled the numbers this morning. And between historic horse racing and skill-based amusement games, in the month of January, $230 million was wagered in the state of Wyoming. Just between those two. That doesn't include live simulcasting or anything like that. So, like I said, I just wanted to also, last year when the task force was created, that was kind of the first time, at least since I've been here, that I was able to really get legislators in our office and show them all of the things that we do and really open our doors to the resources that we have to help them understand. So I look forward to being able to continue that. I'd stand for any questions as well.
Mr. Larramendi, have you read the specifics in Senate File 111?
Mr. Chairman, I have, yes.
Do you believe that language is broad enough to include allowing the select committee authority to develop knowledge and expertise on best industry practices to ensure that gaming activities are conducted honestly, competitively, and free of criminal and corruptive elements, and in a manner that is fair and equitable to the affected parties?
Mr. Chairman, again, I'm not an attorney, but I do see that that's already kind of included with, section, I guess it'd be BI and II. BI definitely tells them to develop knowledge and expertise regarding gaming activities authorized. I think that knowledge and expertise is kind of all encompassing the history and everything else, best practices and all that.
Okay. And do you believe this language in 111 is broad enough to include developing knowledge and expertise regarding the history and connection between live horse racing and authorized gaming activities that support live horse racing and the agricultural industry?
Mr. Chairman, I do. I also feel that follows under I.
Okay. Do you have a comment regarding whether there should be a sunset provision for the select committee?
Mr. Chairman, I do not.
Okay. Thank you very much. Committee, any questions for Mr. Larramendi? See none. Thank you. Okay. Nick, are you here to testify or not? Anybody else in the room on 111? Good morning. Please introduce yourself to the committee and tell us what you want to know about 111.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick Agopian for J&J Gaming. We're skills operator here in the state. Would just echo that the difficulty of getting bounced around different committees, the work and the time that goes into some of these issues is significant, and then having it bounce around is very difficult to educate new committee members. And the select committee with the ability to draft legislation makes sense, so we're not working a whole issue for 3, 6, or 9 months and then having to start over fresh with the committee that would carry the legislation. So with that, we'd stand in support. Thank you.
Did you hear my questions for Mr. Larramendi?
I wasn't paying that close attention. If there's something specific, I'm happy to answer if I've got one.
So we have a proposed amendment to broaden the mission, I suppose, of this select committee to include developing knowledge and expertise on best industry practices to ensure that gaming activities are conducted honestly, competitively, free of criminal and corruptive elements in a manner that is fair and equitable to affected parties. And secondly, to develop knowledge and expertise regarding the history and connection between live horse racing and authorized gaming activities that support live horse racing and agricultural industry. And my question for Mr. Laramendi was, does the language in 111 to you seem broad enough to allow the select committee to focus on those elements as well?
I mean, let me make sure I understand. Do I believe the bill without the amendment is broad enough to address this? I think that generally speaking, yes, that the committee itself, once they're in motion, and what we've seen recently from management council has been giving committees broader discretion on what it is they're looking at. Specific to this amendment, I think expertise on best industry practices is a very important component of moving forward with the study and having a committee understand how technology is changing this and how technology can ensure that the state is getting state and locals are getting their fair share, and that we're deploying in the deployment of the best technology. It protects a lot of the public's interest. And I think it's been consistent that transparency and regulation in this industry overall benefits the industry as well as the public.
Thank you. Any questions? Dana. All right. With that, Senator, bring us home, and then we'll close public comment.
Thank you, Chairman. I think there's, if the committee wishes to be more specific about what they'd like this task force to do, select committee, excuse me, that's fine. I think being too prescriptive, I think that has a danger also. I think it's broad enough that I think if you would allow the committee to have discretion about what they see in front of them to go that direction, I'm not opposed to having those concepts are what I always thought the committee would do, frankly. But if you want to be more prescriptive, I kind of a person who thinks that less is more sometimes. I mean, obviously, if there's a desire to make it more specific, that's fine. I just think the bill draft the bill in front of you works, but this is why we're here in front of the House Judiciary, Mr. Chairman. So I'll let that go at that. I wish frankly, I don't know what the amendment really brings, but I'm not dying on that hill, as they say, over this. So I look forward to hearing the outcome, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. With that, I'm going to close public comment. Committee, what's your preference? Moved by Filer, second by Webb. Any amendments on Senate File 111? Representative Filer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the proposed amendment that was given to us, but I'm trying to decide if I want to move this exactly or not. Only because in I, it just says develop knowledge and expertise regarding gaming activities authorized or proposed under Wyoming law. It doesn't really go, I don't know if that's broad enough to capture these, because I think we do need, best industry practices and stuff like that. But when we look at our other select committees, like I'm on blockchain, that was one of the things that was tasked with them too, because we had a lot of different moving parts when it came to blockchain, whether it be everything from industrial power to Bitcoin mining to AI to all these different things. But we were actually tasked with some of that by getting best industry practices. Then I don't know. I'm trying to think if I want to run this, at least one part of this amendment, Mr. Chairman. If nobody's going to second it, I'll leave it be.
Second for discussion by Chestic. All right, discussion. I don't know what the motion is, first off. Let's pin that down before we get a second.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think what I would like, because I think the part two, so right after we look on here where it says page 2, line 22 insert, I think this two little I, develop knowledge and expertise on best industry practices to ensure that gaming activities are conducted honestly, competitively, and free of criminal and corruptive elements in a manner that is fair and equitable to affected parties. I think that's what I would like to put in right now.
I'll second that.
So the motion is to take Romanet 2 on the proposed amendment. All right, we have a motion and second discussion. I'll just, okay. You know, my only comment on that is I think this is that would occur as a natural byproduct of the committee's operations, right? That whether you're in blockchain or select water or in gaming, you're going to learn about best practices, right? Whether, you know, blockchain or whatever. So I'm not sure that you necessarily need to include that. My only hesitation is at this stage of the game, going into week 4 of the session, everything we do to a bill, although we certainly can and oftentimes should change bills, increases the risk that doesn't make it to the finish line. That's my only worry. So, Representative Chestic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I seconded the motion because I agree that maybe this language is implicit in what exists in the bill, but if it's implicit, why don't we make it explicit? It just makes sense to me to because this is good stuff. This is really the heart of what we were trying to accomplish with this committee. And I think it's just better to make it explicit rather than just hope that people read it that way.
Representative Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question to us would be, does this restrict the committee at all, the proposed committee? I don't see that it does unless I'm missing something.
Representative Filer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman and Representative Webb. I think it just adds to it, not restricts it.
I guess my concern is the fair and equitable language in that if the gaming select committee were to come back and say, we want to cease and desist X, we're going to stop doing X, whatever that might be. Would that be fair and equitable to the proponents of X? Right. And so if we include in there that, you know, whatever they come up with here, you know, needs to be fair and equitable for all affected parties, I think that might be overly restrictive for the mission. Representative Chester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the effective parties is the public. We want to make sure that this is fair and equitable to the public, the affected party. So yes, certainly the gaming industry, the gaming companies are affected parties, but the public that's being protected is also an affected party. So fair and equitable for both parties, I think is really what the heart of what this committee should be doing.
Okay. Representative Webb.
And once again, I really don't have a problem with that. That phrase, that last phrase did jump out at me. And so if it's easier, do we just put a period after criminal and corruptive elements, period?
Friendly or not? Not being seen as friendly by the sponsor, so we'll have to do that separately. Okay. Being no further discussion on the amendment to insert Romanet 2 on the proposed amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. Let's get a show of hands. Ayes. 1, 2, 3. Noes. 1, 2, 3. Ties. That's okay. It passes, right? On a tie or no? It has to have a majority to pass, right? Yeah. So that one fails. Is there a second motion? Okay. Question on the bill. Call 111.
This is a roll call vote on Senate File 111, Representative Brady,
Aye.
Representative Bratton,
Aye.
Representative Chestek,
Aye.
Representative Filer, Representative Kelly,
Excused,
Representative Lean,
excused.
Representative Singh,
He left a vote of aye.
Representative Webb,
Aye.
Chairman Washington.
Aye.
7 ayes, 2 excused.
Since I'm the only co-sponsor on the bill, I guess I'll carry it on the floor. Thank you. And that will conclude House Judiciary for this week. Move into our,
Thank you, House Judiciary, for listening.
thank you, Senator.